the cloud. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the February community call. Yeah, sorry we didn't have one for January. It was a busy end of year, busy couple of months for me personally here, Minorities in Cybersecurity. Of course, we launched the Mike Lead program, and we've been doing a lot of that. Getting our leaders trained and everything like that. So it wasn't going to happen in January. Sorry for that. For those of you that are watching on the restream, I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get this pulled off for January, but we're here now. And what we're going to talk about a few things today. Of course, our agenda, as we usually play that out. We have our leadership quote and then our discussion for the day. It's just going to be me. You're just going to have to hear me ramble on with some potential audience participation, but you guys are usually pretty quiet, but you'll be listening to Mary talk about stories, right? And it's always going to be stories from experiences that I've had. But this particular issue is really near and dear to my heart because we're in the midst of this great resignation. So what what you've seen, what you've heard out there is this whole everybody's changing jobs. And, I read an article that essentially said 40%, I believe it was around 40% of employees felt that they were going to change jobs this year. And of course, you have all these jobs that are still out there in cybersecurity. And, we have this workforce shortage and all these things that are going on out there right now, but I still get calls, right? I still get issues about individual corporations having challenges with not only attracting, but hiring and retaining. And we'll talk about that as well, minority talent. And so that's what we're going to get into a little bit today. We'll talk about, my experiences, not only as an employee, but as a hiring manager and things like that. We'll get into a little bit about that. So our leadership quote for today, of course, is the role of a great leader is not to give greatness to human beings, but to help them extract the greatness they already have inside them. And each and every last one of you have the ability to be a leader and to actually be great in whatever capacity that you choose to be great in. And you just need people to support you. And that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this conversation. You need people that are there that are going to support you and to believe in you, that what you know inside yourself is true. And I'm here to tell you that I know it's true for you, each as an individual, as you are now embarking on your own journey, wherever you are in that journey. It takes a little bit of belief of others and a lot of belief within yourself. So all right, we talked about this in December. If you've read any articles that have been written about me recently, there's another one coming out in March in regards to this whole idea that I have about diversity in depth. And again, I'll go back and explain it. This is a play on the security in depth, the thing that they talked about, information security in depth, that concept that you can't just do one thing and expect hackers not to hack into your system. You can't just do one thing to actually solve this diversity issue that we're having. There are issues with corporations, real issues with corporations, and there are real issues in regards to the opportunities that minorities and women have and the lack of certain types of resources that we need and what I would call survival skills that the Mike Lead program is trying to teach those that are in it. But there are certain things that you actually need. So there's responsibilities on both ends. I usually am more hard on corporations because with minorities and women, we don't know what we don't know. And for me, corporations should know better. That's just my own philosophy, because it's a business practice, right? Diversity for me is also part of a business strategy. Any type of strategy that you have, you should be able to measure. So corporate issues, when I talk about corporate to-dos in this diversity in depth type of conversation that we're having, some of the things that I see as commitment issues, right? Corporations are not necessarily committed just based on what my minimum experiences is with corporations coming to me, explaining to me, hey, we have problems attracting minority talent. Where is this minority talent? And they always want to throw in the workforce shortage and the gaps and all this other stuff. But what happens when they, if they get on the phone with me, or unfortunately, if they have they've read they've watched the seminar, they've watched, they've read an article or whatever. My issue with corporations is, what is your commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion? Because it's an easy out for corporations to say, oh, well, we can't find the talent. Where are you looking? And so if a corporation is sitting there saying, I can't find the talent, I can't do this, I can't do that, but they don't have a plan to find the talent, or they're looking for that talent in similar places that they look for all other talent, it becomes what are you truly committed to trying to change the narrative? So I can give you an example again, because I talk in stories. So it becomes at Minorities in Cybersecurity, we have corporate members. Our corporate members, those that are members to our corporation, to our organization, are normally people that I have personal relationships with. Meaning, if you're going to become a member of Minorities in Cybersecurity, I like to talk to organizations, because it's one thing to just want to bring in a whole bunch of people that look diverse because you have a workforce shortage, or you don't have enough people that look or are a certain way, so you're trying to get your diversity numbers up. That's one thing. If you're actually committed to actually ensuring that those individuals are successful in your organization, that's that next step, right? So you can get a whole bunch of people that look similar in an organization, but if they start to fall off around that 2-3 year time frame, then it becomes what is it about your culture that's causing this leakage problem? And so I talk to corporations, I talk to organizations about what are they doing to support minority talent. And it becomes, okay, so do you have a training program for them? How do you have, different ways that they can actually enhance their careers through skills? Do you pay for certifications? Do you pay for additional education? Is it, and so any corporation, any organization out there that's in business has to have a strategy. And that strategy, if you're talking DEI, must include certain things. And if you're not committed to it, it really comes off. And we know how sensitive, especially minorities, can be about the types of organizations that we work for. So if we get a sense that it's just, you're just paying lip service to it, you're going to have a problem. Corporations, you're going to have a problem if you're not committed, if you're not showing that you're committed. And another one of my pet peeves will be this whole concept, minority talent is lesser talent. And that's something that I've been on stage when I've talked about diversity, equity, inclusion. I've come across when I've talked to individual corporations that have come to Minorities in Cybersecurity to want to become members. I've talked about, and we've talked about that. And it becomes why is it that you automatically think that if you are going after minority talent, that it is less than what you would receive from a white male? And I'm saying it that way because that's the test, that's the litmus test. It's whether or not minority and women talent matches up to the idea, not the actual work performance, but the idea that white men are more technical. This is a field, they're more adept, or they have this mental state that will actually allow them to be better at these sorts of things than minorities and women. That is a unconscious bias that exists with individuals, not only I've experienced it with hiring managers, I've experienced it with recruiters, I've experienced it with corporations, and I've even experienced it with minority women. I just experienced it over the course of this month during Black History Month with a minority female that reached out to me wanting to post jobs on our job board. Now, if you follow us, if you don't know, we have a job board for which we post jobs that from organizations that either one are members to our organization or two sign up to pay to post those jobs. And, you know, she contacted me wanting to know all of these things in regards to whether or not, you know, are we keeping track of placements? How many people are looking at these jobs? How many people are, you know, applying? And it was numbers based. And anytime you are dealing with, whenever someone, this is me personally, whenever someone comes to me and they're specifically talking about numbers, it leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because you're not concerned with whether or not your culture supports minority talent. You're concerned about checking a box of the number of minority applicants that you've had. Now, for those that don't know, I'm here to tell you, minorities in cybersecurity, our job board is meant to marry individuals or corporations or organizations or even academic institutions that are looking for minority talent and minority talent that are looking for them. I do not keep metrics about placements. That is not a revenue generator for us, in a sense that we're not a placement agency. We are trying to develop leaders, and then preparing those leaders to be able to take on these individual jobs. So when I was talking to this person, you know, she made the comment that, you know, we want the best of the best talent and minorities and women. And then I said, okay, so hold on, because Miss Mary, sensitive about words, language matters. I'm a lawyer, you guys know that. And so what you're saying is you want the best of the best, and as if minorities and women cannot be the best of the best. And that is a unconscious bias that exists that we have to tear down, that corporations have to stop believing that just because you have some sort of goal to increase the levels of minority and women talent in your organization, that means that talent is not up to par with the white males of the world. That is just not the case. If anything, as a previous hiring manager, let me here to tell you that if women have outshined every man on every single day on every team that I've had. You know, women are bringing it, whereas, you know, you have it. They because we're operating from insecurity, and we'll get into a little bit of that as well. And as speaking of hiring managers, and that's part of the problem as well, the fact that if you don't hire enough folks in a particular, in your, let's say your entry level roles, then you're not going to matriculate those folks into people leaders, right? And if they don't become people leaders and don't have the ability to hire, if you have a lack of minorities in management roles, you're going to have a lack of minorities in your ranks. Because I've found, and I've said this before and I'll continue to say it, all of the teams that I've been on, I have had the most diverse teams of any other of my peers in an organization. Because first of all, I recognize as a leader, I need people that look different, think different, act different than I do if I want to solve a problem. But then again, I'm more likely to see a diamond in the rough. I'm more likely to see that the capacity of individual that's sought out these particular skills and these particular, whether it be certifications or it's skills or whatever. And so, and I'm more likely to take a chance on a minority where there have been situations in my past and previously different hiring managers that were not minority, that it's a difference between seeing 15 things and saying, okay, this person has 13, so they have the capability to do this job, and seeing 15 things and say, oh, this person missed these two, so they can't do this job. And that's a mental state, and that is something that is rampant out there. And there's something, as we get into this next level of things that we're going to talk about, that's really out there. There's a level of unconscious bias that actually says that, oh, if this woman doesn't have all these 15 things, then she's not capable, even though she has 95% of everything else, right? And there's this idea that you have to be able to take a chance that on an individual to be able to succeed. And we'll get into that right now. So as you guys know, minorities in cybersecurity is broken down into 4 different groups of people, and A, B, C, D. Aspirers being those that are, either graduating from college or transitioning into the cybersecurity space. Builders being those that are in the cybersecurity space and they're building out their career. Communicators being those that are now trying to become people leaders, and the leadership skills and the leadership development you need to become a people leader. And then directors, of course, being those that are trying to move into executive management. Each of those individual ABCD blocks, there are different things that you need to know at the time that you're in those blocks that will either help or hinder you as you try to move forward, right? So the aspirers, the things that I will talk to the aspirers about today, those of you that are in college, are trying to transition into the cybersecurity space, read job description. And actually, everybody needs to read job descriptions, but words matter, and understanding what is required and what's a nice to have. Now, HR professionals, there are HR people out there that are designed, that the whole thing they do is write job descriptions. That's what they do. And required is something that is required. If it doesn't say required, if it just lists, oh, CISSP is strongly desired, strongly desired does not mean required. And so you have to be able to read job descriptions in a way to where it actually puts you in the position that you're actually applying for roles that, a woman especially looks at and say, oh, I only have 80%, I'm missing these 2. So 1, put your best foot forward and apply for that role. On the corporation side, don't look at this resume and say, oh, they have 80%, but they're missing this 20. So the AI is gonna, force them out. So reading job descriptions is important, and especially if you're trying to move to different levels. So if you are, for instance, a builder, if you've been in your career for 10 to 15 years and you see a people leader management role that's only asking for 5 to 7 years, you actually may be underselling yourself for that role. And I say that only because there are different flavors of analyst, senior analyst, director, senior director. There are beginning level directors. There are more senior level executives that are just on the cusp of becoming a C-level executive, and there are ranges in there. So when you're reading a job description and you see that this is a director of vulnerability management, that they're only seeking 7 years of experience, you have to understand that that's probably an entry level director level role. And I say that only because, and you can kind of sort of tell when you get into a conversation about salary, and we'll save that. You guys know I can go on for days about salary, but you can kind of sort of see based on the salary, if they post a range, what it is, just based on what that range is. So if they're looking for somewhere between, let's just for example, say $100,000 and $150,000 a year. Well, there are actually analysts out there that are coming in making 180. So you have to level set on what these organizations and what they're doing. And as you're now reading these job descriptions, understand what a entry level role is. And they're entry level roles that they want you to have 5 years of experience, which is crazy, right? And the core job description writing. So read the job descriptions for my builders out there. Now, there are things out there that are what I would say would be is that unconscious bias or microaggression or barriers to entry. So if you work in a corporation, you know that you're siloed, right? Corporations put vulnerability management in this spot. They put the security operations center in this spot. They may put network security in this slot. So if you are in these slots and you get into a role in your builder, you say, oh, okay, I hate to pick on pen testers, but that's just the easiest. No, let's do reverse engineer. I want to be a reverse engineer. No, let's do this. Let's do analyst. I want to be a level 1 SOC analyst. And that's what you have in your head that you want to be when you come out of school. And you get your L1 SOC analyst position and you think, oh, I'm going to be happy with this position for my entire life, right? And then you get in there and you start handling tickets. And L1 SOC analyst, security operations center analyst, all you're doing is cleaning up viruses off, sending tickets to IT to clean off viruses off of someone else's PC. And every single day, that's what you're doing every single day. And then you're like, oh crap, I can't do this. So what do I need to do to move out of this space or get more skills or go from an L1 SOC analyst to an L2 or even flip and go into reverse engineering or vulnerability management? What do I need to do? And for some organizations that becomes for larger organizations, it could be much easier to move to different areas and stay within the same company. But for organizations that have a small security team, they have multiple people wearing multiple hats in a security team, it may not be possible for you to stay within the corporation that you're in and get new skill levels because they're not maturing, because they're not doing this or that. You have to switch jobs. And it's just a matter of I have a mission, I have a goal in mind for my career. I know if I stay within this company, I'm not going to be able to gather as many skills as I need to get to my next level, right? And so you end up switching opportunities. Now, one of the things that people have done, and I would say this to be the case for, I'm not gonna, it'll be bad if I say that, I won't say that, but there are certain folks in certain age ranges, which I'm not in, I'm a Gen Xer, that believe that you start a job, you stay in that job 10, 15, 20 years. And, then when you reach year 20, then you get your promotional opportunities within the organization. That is not a sentiment that I believe in. That's not a sentiment that the younger generation believes in. But one of the things that you'll see is that sometimes organizations will hold it against you if you switch that job because you're siloed into vulnerability management. Nobody's going to take a chance on putting you into, let's say internal threat, right? And so it becomes if I want to move and get my level of subject matter expertise up, I need to move. But then you'll find when you're going out to the market, the first things recruiters ask you is, oh, well, why did you move to this job? Or why didn't you move to that job? Now, sorry, I needed some water. Now, for me, that is a dated way of trying to determine whether or not somebody is qualified for the role that they're interviewing for. It's a dated way, especially when everybody's switching jobs every single week, for you to actually hold it against me or actually ask me questions about why I've decided to move and do this other thing. But I'm finding, or I've found, or I've heard stories, or by experience, that that is an issue that recruiters use to prevent you from moving to another opportunity. Oh, that they've only been in this role for 18 months. They're just looking for this and they're going to leave. They're going to be gone in 18 months. Well, in the reality of the situation is, you can look at any of the white guys that have been in these roles, any of them that are ambitious, they usually switch jobs every 18 to 24 months if they want to get somewhere. And that's been my experience. You can go out there and look at it. And sometimes I read people's LinkedIn profiles and I can see, yeah, they've spent 24 years at this organization, but in the past 5 years, they've had three other roles, because they realized that the 24 years they spent here was ultimately a waste of time. I wouldn't say a waste of time. It was a commitment, but it didn't get them where they wanted to go. And they realized that, boom, I need to get where I want to go. So that's another thing from our to-do perspective, being able to recognize that not only reading those job descriptions, but understanding that there are certain things that may be held against you that won't be held against others. And I talk about the communicators, say hi to all of my Mike Lead communicators that are in the Mike Lead training program right now. So when you built up your skills, now you're set. You say, hey, I'm gonna go after this leadership role. I'm gonna go after this senior manager. I'm reaching for the stars, right? And then you get there, and then that's where the insecurities come in. And that's where this imposter syndrome that, I personally don't believe that minorities have the luxury to suffer from imposter syndrome, mainly because we have to kick and crawl and scratch for every little bitty thing we get. So when we get it, we're getting something that we deserve to get for, I don't know, before we've gotten there, right? And we'll get into that, the scales not balanced issue in the moment. But they feel like, oh, am I qualified to be in the room? Because you're judging yourself by others, not really understanding that everybody else is thinking the same thing you do about yourself, right? So everybody else is sitting there thinking that they don't belong in the room. But men specifically tend to express themselves when they're feeling insecure aggressively, whereas women tend to express themselves passively. And so the idea there is, we don't feel comfortable, we become silent. Men don't feel comfortable, they become more boisterous. And you can tell, just if you sit on a conference call or you sit in the room, if you guys are back in person, usually the folks that are the loudest are the folks that you sit there and like, they don't know what the heck they're talking about. If you listen. And it's an art form to be able to sit there and talk about a whole bunch of stuff. But it's like, what are you doing? Where do you have results, of what you're talking about? And there are a lot of opinions out there, but show me where you've achieved results in whatever it is you're talking about. So be hip to that as well. Scales are not balanced. Okay, so here's my pet peeve, and I have many, and that's why we're here today, because I usually use you guys as an outlet for me. But what we have a situation here is, minorities and women are normally judged by what they've done before, whereas the white majority, white males, are judged on potential. And what I mean by that, remember we were talking about the 80-20 rule, right? You have 80%, you're missing 20%. They have 20%, they're missing 80%. That person, that white male that has that 20%, and just like, because he's speaking loudly, he's speaking more confidently, he can talk about one thing really, 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 really well. a corporation will say that person has the potential to be awesome. Even though they only have 20%, they can be great. And then you have a minority or a woman that has 80%, because they haven't had the senior manager title before, that's a knock against them. And it exists. You know, I've read job descriptions, I've seen job descriptions, I've been told about experience. Oh, because you haven't had the title before, that means you can't do the job. Well, let me tell you, let's just take CISO for instance. Let's just take the Fortune 1000. That means if an organization is doing what they're supposed to do, there are 1,000 CISO jobs out there. Let's just say there's only 500 CISOs out there in the Fortune 500. For 500 of those jobs, somebody is going to have to say, you don't have the title, but you're qualified to do this role. And for us, especially as minorities and women, what I find is you need somebody to sign off, quote unquote, on your ability to and your potential in order to make that level. So if you're telling me, let's just take Mary, for instance, you're telling me I can't be a CISO because I've never had that title before. My answer to you is look at my resume and tell me what exactly am I missing. Oh, and if all you come back to me and say, oh, well, you've never had the title, that means you don't understand what it takes to do the job. And that is a form of, in my opinion, unconscious bias. And it's just not Mary's word. I think it was McKinsey. It was either McKinsey. It was somebody that did that study that actually said women and minorities are judged on what they've done before, whereas white men are judged on the potential of what they have to be successful. And what that means when it comes to not only opportunities to, and it can go all the way down to the minorities or lesser mentality that we talked about before, all the way up to, and that travels with you, no matter A, B, C, or D, that travels with you, that we're lesser, right? And that you're only here because of affirmative action, or because somebody said, you know, they're looking for a number or check marks to check off. And it becomes when you have that stigma attached to you, just being in the room becomes stressful. And now you have this idea that you have to prove yourself. But then when you go out to the market and you're like, wait a minute, but I've done everything that you say I should have. You say I should do. I've done everything, and yet I'm still not afforded the same opportunities. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a boss who was the CIO of an organization that I work for, didn't even have a technical degree, was getting paid goo gobs of money, goo gobs of stock, and had no subject matter expertise in information security, in technology for that matter. And so it becomes okay, so how did you get to be my boss's boss as a CIO, and you don't have a technical degree? You don't have any subject matter expertise. And it becomes because they have potential, or because they didn't really care about information security. They put an executive over there that they wanted them to leave anyway, which is another different thing as well. So be mindful of those things. And then when we get to the director level, so I've been at the director level since I left the FBI. I went from director to senior director, back to director, senior director. Now I'm a director of information security and privacy. So director level above, executive level above. There are different flavors of all of this. You could be an executive as an individual contributor. You can be an executive with a team, blah, 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 blah. And so what happens when you become a director, and what I've seen as I've tried to make it to a C-level role, they seem to get more insecure as they go up the ladder, right? And so by the time you get to the executive level, especially there, and I have not seen that many minorities, African-American minorities above me. in my chain, right? So when we start talking about where I sit in information security and privacy for all of the organizations, I've seen women, but I have never worked for a minority. No, an African American. I've worked for other minorities. And so it becomes you fought, you scratched, you kicked, you fought, you fought all the way to get here, and then you get here, and now you feel like you have to protect your territory. And it causes, in my experience, a certain level of insecurity in people because they become paranoid. And that's the best way I could describe it, guys. It's like they become paranoid and they believe that all of these people out there are gunning for their role, that they want to question them, that there are people that are operating some shadow operation behind. I've experienced, I've seen and experienced it on more than one occasion at more than one company where, unfortunately, women, and it's been women, I will tell you that 100%. It's been women that have felt that somebody else is a threat to them, and they have taken things personally that others are doing, thinking that, oh, this person is operating because they want my job, and they want something from me, or they're trying to do something behind my back. Now, my attitude has always been, and I've told the folks that have worked for me, if you want to know how to do my job, the best way for me to get a promotion is to teach somebody else how to do what I'm doing. So I would come sit, let's have a chat. You don't have to work behind my back to do anything, because I can teach you, I can show you. Remember our leadership quote, I can bring that greatness out in you, because eventually this is not the end of the road for me, and I don't want it to be the end of the road for you. So you have, don't feel like you have to do all of these things covertly behind my back. Come, let's sit down, let's have a drink, let's have a coffee, and let's, or some water. Let's have some coffee and water, and we can talk about what it takes for you to get where I am. And so, but I've seen that mentality from many executives, unfortunately female executives, in this space, where it's like they're seeing things that go bump in the night that are not really there, or in your position once you get there is never secure, but it doesn't mean somebody is actually working against you to sabotage you. Now, speaking from somebody have actually had that experience where an employee was actually purposely trying to sabotage me, you can tell the difference between somebody that's out to get you and doing different things behind your back, and those that you're just seeing different things go bump in the night. So that's ultimately what I wanted to share. Like I said, this diversity and depth, there are a lot of to-dos on both the corporation side as well as the leader side, you guys side. And of course, minorities in cybersecurity is built for you guys. I'm here today. We're doing these things today specifically to be able to get you where you need to go, to bring out your greatness individually. You can let me talk crazy to the corporations. You don't talk crazy to them. I can talk crazy to them. To be able to bring that greatness out in you, so you can now take this and be successful and then give back. Now, the one thing that I would say is, once you make it, and I know it's hard to be able to get out there and say nobody's helping me, and you feel like you're isolated and alone, and you got to do this all by yourself. Don't turn your back on folks that are behind you, because we're never going to change the statistics if we don't operate together as we go through this journey. So I have talked for 45 minutes straight, mind you, and I need some water. So I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to bring you guys back in, those that are out there that haven't had an opportunity to bring into the phone call. Just to have a Q&A. And, anybody out there, questions, anything you want to talk about, discuss today? We have 15 minutes and I need water. Come on. I got some quiet folks today. As usual, you guys are always quiet. Why?
Hey, Mary, it's Leslie. This was a good segment today. What you spoke about is, I think, very true in corporations where they're not willing to give the training. I've experienced being thrown into a situation and told to just figure it out. And I was like, okay, so I'm figuring it out. And then I started asking questions on things I didn't know. Like you said, we don't know what we don't know. So I'm asking questions and trying to gather information to make sure that I'm going about everything the right way, only to be told during my evaluation that I asked too many questions. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm in a level 1 position. This is where I'm supposed to be asking questions. This is where I'm learning. What are you talking about? So I kind of got slapped on the hands for asking too many questions. And I don't feel that that's justified, because I noticed when my counterparts were asking questions, there was always somebody there to answer them. Just my experience.
Don't ever stop asking questions, right? I mean, that's a hard place to be in. And those reviews, I've had mixed results with those reviews. I've really only had in my corporate career, I guess, one individual boss that actually took those things seriously and provided me with guidance. As I don't make it a secret about what my ambitions are in any organization, and so to be able to be told that I'm asking too many questions. So and that takes me back to the FBI and FBI training and the difference between a good leader and a bad leader. Thinking everything is a bad leadership trait, right? Thinking how to do this or how to do that based on, especially if you're new to an organization, especially if it's a new role, if it's a new position, you need to understand how to navigate those waters. And I would just say my advice to you is continue asking questions. Just because you're not comfortable with the answer doesn't mean that I can't ask. And if your direct supervisor is not the person that is most responsible, you need to find someone within an organization that will be able to assist you as you're trying to learn that organization. Anybody else? Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome as always. Anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns? Because I can sit here and cry about my car all afternoon like I have been. You guys don't want to hear that story. Any other, so as we talk about minorities and cybersecurity and our ways to move forward, right? And what it is our mission is in regards to impact and impacting individuals that are in this space, trying to navigate these situations that they're in. It becomes important for you guys, to share what you're going through, because a lot of times people just feel like I'm going through this all by myself. And what I do want you guys to understand and know that you're not alone, that any experience that you have, I bet you I can find somebody else that has similar experiences. And it's not to commiserate, it's more to strategize about what's the best way to move forward. When we're experiencing certain things, when we're experiencing challenges within an organization, when we're experiencing, we have to have a community that we have a safe space to come to and say, hey, is this right? what did you do in this particular situation? So I know I record these calls and nobody wants to share, when I'm recording these calls, but to the extent that you're going through something, that you are in a challenging space, utilizing this platform as a way to share and to get it out there, to get your message out there, will assist. I don't know everything. I like to play like I do on TV, but I don't. But it's just, it's a community effort to be able to say, hey, Mary, I'm going through this or whatever. And so what advice did you have? Or even to gather from the other leaders on the call, what they've done to get through some of the things that they've gotten through. So I don't want you guys to just, I know some of you just come out there just to listen and everything like that, but I do want this to be a community call, in the sense that we are bringing certain things to the community to not only bring awareness to what's going on, but to get advice and assistance on what we're trying to do. So that's my spill for today in
Hey, Mary,
regards to Barbara. Yes, absolutely.
how are you?
Good.
How's my
Ashley, how are
audio?
you?
Because I'm in the car, so I think I have good
Yeah.
signal now.
Okay.
So I just wanted to chime in on Leslie's issue, right? One of the things, the advice that I would give Leslie, right, is, I've heard this before. We've talked about it before within the MIC community. Is most of the times people leave jobs because of bad managers and bad bosses, right? It's a well documented statistic and a finding. So in addition to finding somebody else in that organization that can assist you, right, you have a couple of other options. You can either realize that it's not a perfect fit for you, that organization, and leave. That's easier said than done, obviously, right? But what you don't want to do is lose the valuable time that you have, right, while you're working there. And I would say, join different message boards, go out there and, Google things, research it on your own. Speak to, like on this call, speak to the community, right? Reach out to your community and leverage your network to try to get the information you need. Because if your employer is not giving it to you, right, and you can't go anywhere immediately, you don't want to waste that time, right? You want to use that time to try to, at that point, you're working to bolster yourself, not so much the organization. The organization is going to benefit from it. But if you decide, and if you get an opportunity, you decide you want to leave, now you're going to bring all that you learned, hopefully to a better organization, one that's going to treat you better, and hopefully to a manager that's going to appreciate what you're bringing to the table. So, use your network, go out there, research things on your own. Don't rely on just the one source, which is your manager or the people in the organization that are not willing to help you.
Yeah, culture is a big thing. Go ahead, Leslie. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I was doing the research on my own and using other people that I could find that were not in my organization. And I came to the conclusion that that company wasn't a good fit for me. So I left them last year, and I'm now with a different company, and I have a better manager that's supportive and wants to grow me. So I'm happy where I'm at. It's a smaller company. The other company was a large corporation, and I was very much disappointed in them, but for having that type of culture. But I think I moved to a better spot.
And that, Leslie, a lot of times, and Mary touched on this in the community call, it's very important for anybody at a certain point in your career, especially minorities, to find a sponsor, right? A sponsor can carry your career beyond belief, right? So a lot of times you have to make that hard decision and leave a place like you did, right? Until you find the right fit and until you find a person that's willing to support you and be that sponsor for you.
Yeah, culture is a big thing. And, that goes with what we've talking about, the diversity and depth thing. And, culture, building culture, bad cultures will lead people out. Again, people leave managers, every role that, I say except one. It's been because of a culture mismatch, right? And sometimes it's a hard decision to make, that it's like, this is just not working for me. After you try everything, you're talking to somebody that's had, paid coaches and mentors and, different, and my personal board of directors and all of these other things that are in and around me. And it sometimes it's hard to just say, yeah, this is not working for me, but it's okay to say that it's not working for me, and to find that, because your boss and your boss can make or break your experience within a company, right? And I've been in organizations that have had great corporate culture, and that subculture with that individual boss was toxic. And I've been in organizations where the organizational culture was toxic, but the individual subset that was created by individual leader was different. And so your manager can be a direct, is a direct test for you as you're looking. So as you're interviewing, we talk about aspirers or people looking for new jobs, as you're interviewing, ask a lot of questions to be able to determine whether or not this culture, because you're interviewing them too. I know it's uncomfortable. It is very uncomfortable to start asking people about their statistics. I just don't make it shame. It's not shameful for me anymore to ask, I'm looked on your website and nobody at the executive level is a person of color. What are my odds of actually getting this role? Because I am an anomaly, based on your corporate culture. But two, what is your commitment to diversifying all of this in order to be able to be better? And those questions, they're harder to ask. I admit it, they're harder to ask younger in your career than, you get to be, as I would say, seasoned. We're gonna call it seasoned like me, where it becomes that will make or break an opportunity, the culture will. And so that's another struggle that individual corporations have in this space when they're trying to get minority talent, when they're focused really just on the numbers or bringing people in and not focused in on, so now that I've gotten them here, how do I make this work for them? How do I change my culture? Getting down to, what are we training our hiring managers on? What are we giving them diversity training? Do they understand? Have these managers gone through an assessment about whether or not they show biases and things like that? These are all things that, when we're talking about this DEI in-depth strategy, you have to look at. You can't put all the responsibility on the minority to fix your culture. You actually have to vest into making sure you have the appropriate culture. So thank you, Leslie, for sharing. I appreciate that. We only have a couple minutes left. I want to give anybody else an opportunity to chime in if they want. JC, you don't have anything to say tonight?
Well, I'm driving, so I was
Oh,
trying to, I didn't want all the background noise. I just wanted to say this was a great conversation, and I would like to put this out. I am currently in a position where I want to make a proposal to be realigned to another group. And I'm hesitating on what I want to say, how I want to do the proposal. I don't want to put it in writing. I want to have a conversation. And the reason why I want to do that, I currently am in IT security. And I'm a program manager for those of you that are listening. And one of the things that I'm doing, I work on a lot of programs under data governance. And when I look at them, they all align to privacy, security, the triad, I call it privacy, security, as well as compliance. But I report to another group called governance. And I'm not doing any work under governance, nothing, no assignments, nothing. So I want to be able to position myself to go to leadership and just propose, for the future, an alignment of skill sets that would grow the company, benefit the company, as well as benefit my career. Let's get ready for the future and be proactive as opposed to reactive. I'll put that on the table because I need some advice.
How long have you been in a role?
It'll be 2 years next week.
And have you had your 2021 conversation yet?
Not yet. Not yet. I just graded myself and a 1 to 5 scale. I put 4.6.
Well, I put 5, but anyway.
I did 4.6 because
you was trying to be humble. I'm not humble.
Yeah,
5.
okay.
But if in any event, I would say that would be the perfect time to have that conversation, not to put the proposal forth, but to gauge where your current manager is, because if they're not in agreement, then it's not going to change, right? And so you have to ask the appropriate questions of your current manager on, where do you see this going? Where do you see this this role maturing? Where it's kind of sort of backdooring it to make them get to the conclusion on their own, as opposed to it being a suggestion. You want to know the temperature. You want to gauge the temperature first before going in there and just, explaining to them what you feel that we should be aligned differently. It's your current manager will be someone that can either be assisting to you in this or a roadblock. And so what you want to do is to try to, at least in my opinion, gauge where that person is, gauge where they're based on your performance review, right? And say, okay, so this is what I'm doing. Doesn't seem to be aligned. What do you think, right? And go from there before going to their boss.
Oh, well then I'm going to throw this out there. Great advice. Here's another layer to that. My direct manager has never given me assignments and always says, just keep doing what you're doing. And they're very insecure in their role. It's a minority female, and she looks at me as a competitor. So
do you have anyone else in the organization that you can talk to that are outside of her, or peer or anything like that?
No.
Okay. We might have, I think, okay, so she sees you, there's a wrinkle in that conversation. Just keep doing what you're doing. It's not good feedback from an end of year perspective, right? And so
Correct.
That's an opportunity for growth for her, but all you can do is what you can do, right? And it's trying to get her there, managing up, right? when you don't have a good manager, you want to get them where you want them to go through asking poignant questions and putting out targeted different earmarks and things like that you can achieve and you can meet, and try to get them there. And I'm not saying you haven't done this in the 2 years that you've been there. It could be something that you're like, I'm just done with this chick, and that's fine. But it's more so in your 2 years that you've been there, who's an ally, who's someone you can actually talk to, who's someone that you can put a bug in their ear. Have you made friends above her? See, I've always made friends above my boss. And so I've always been able to go to those and say, okay, this is what my thoughts, what do you think, to get advice and counsel, as opposed to going forth and presenting something officially. You want to get them to present it for you, right? Because it could potentially have blowback. So it becomes let me see how I can actually strategize about getting what I want, through playing, what I would say, playing chess, through talking to other individuals to gauge interest, because sometimes it may not even be possible based on culture. There are certain things that you're just not going to be able to do, and you just have to accept that this is what it is. And an organization may not be ready for the thoughts and ideas you have about growth. And so you have to be able to, as you're working within that environment, determine whether or not they're ready for this particular idea or not. Are you seeing it happen in other in other organizations, how they're actually getting this accomplished? So you have to observe first. And if you've observed and now you're ready to move forward, it's like, who can help me? Who can I talk to put a bug in their ear to give me advice about going to this person or this person's boss to get me where I want to go? Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And then
You're breaking up, JC. You sound like a robot. You're breaking up. What? You're losing your signal.
Hey, Mary, can I just add one little bit to your advice?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
JC, you might want to seek out the manager who you would end up working under, right? And make a connection there. And then little by little, maybe pitch the idea there, right? And maybe gain some traction on that side.
I like that idea. Do I sound better now?
You're better, but you're still
Still a robot.
choppy. But go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for the advice. I will take everything under advisement, because I've only reported to this person for 5 months, and the wrinkle is I have a very good relationship with the CISO, who is over everybody. And so, and he asked me how did I feel last week, and I think I want to call him and just tell him my proposal.
Be careful, be wary, because if you're not reporting directly to the CISO or you're reporting to one of that person's direct reports, you don't want to ruffle any feathers either. So it's a political play as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, guys, let me go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you guys so much for joining for the community call, and we will chat again next week. Listen to me, next month. Well, are we? Okay, yeah. I should be here on the 18th of next month. We'll talk again next month, and thank you guys so much for joining. Thanks for being a part of the community. For those of you that are out there that are watching this, thank you so much. Please like, subscribe, post that you like it. Give us the thumbs up. Minorities in cybersecurity, we're here for you. All right, have a great night. Bye-bye.
Thank you, you too.
Yeah.